Hey guys, welcome back to the vlog. My name is Christian Panteroff. I'm a high school senior from Atlanta, Georgia, and I actually filmed this vlog a few weeks ago, but I decided I didn't like it, and I also didn't have this YALE sweatshirt back then, so I just scrapped that footage and decided I'm going to redo it. So basically, I wanted to just make a pretty casual video about how I got my YALE likely letter. So if you don't know what a likely letter is, it's basically when the college tells you you're going to get into that college early, informally, because they think you're going to get accepted at a lot of other highly selective institutions, so they kind of want to try to recruit you. And YALE sends out, I've heard 100 or 200 of these each year. I know I specifically got a STEM likely letter and was named a YALE Engineering and Science Scholar, which is something they send out to only 70 students. So it's a very selective thing and it's very hard to get, but I just wanted to kind of like shed some light on why I think I got this honor. So for this video, I'm not going to talk about my Common app since I'm planning on making a separate video for that, but I wanted to just kind of talk about my YALE essays and supplements that I submitted since I believe those played a big part of my admission. So without further ado, let's just get started with my first essay. And this prompt is, tell us about a topic or idea that excites you and is related to one or more academic areas you selected above. Why are you drawn to it? In 200 words. I had no idea the words Hadamard, Oracle, and superposition existed until my Minds of Quantum Computation course. Keeping up with the jargon-filled lectures prepared me for what feels like anything, while making me find joy in the collective struggle of deciphering problem sets. Though I constantly wonder what the physical manifestations of qubits were, and how the programs we coded with Qiskit came alive. I lit up after learning I'd read an article in my science writing course, seeing the prime opportunity to tackle this burning question. I spent evenings researching qubit designs and had the chance to interview Yale postdoctoral associate Daniel Weiss, who explained the components of qubits, superconductors and Joseph subjunctions, and how he's developing quantum RAM, an implementation of quantum I'd like to explore at Yale since I'm fascinated by the idea of quantum versions of classical technology. Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in to ask you to please subscribe to my channel. I say the exact same thing every time, but now I still have only 6.8% of my viewers subscribed, and according to my calculations that I'm typing out right now, since I have 104 subscribers, if everyone else subscribed, we would get to 1,529 subscribers, which is on the way to like 1 million, so you guys should definitely subscribe. Back to the video. Still, what inspired me most to commit myself to exploring quantum were the implications we discuss. Aside from how it can both break and reinvent the internet's encryption, the unintuitive approach to computing can accurately simulate complex processes like drug interactions. The life-changing potential of such an esoteric technology makes me eager to work toward integrating it into everyday life. I'm surprised I was able to read that without stuttering.
I literally just started right there.
Anyway, I think this essay, it's kind of like, I guess I would say I wrote this essay for a lot of colleges. I kind of use the same topic. Basically, I did this program called My Semester, which is an MIT program, and I took a quantum computation class, as I said, and that was kind of like my main STEM interest that I talked about for all of my colleges. So I used a different version of this essay for like basically every college I applied to. And I mean, if we think about the prompt, definitely it's kind of hinting towards intellectual curiosity. I think that's what you kind of have to demonstrate here. They want you to talk about a topic that excites you. So you have to definitely show that excitement and definitely like related to one of the areas you select as your major. But also, like, why are you drawn to it? I think that's like a very important part of this prompt that I think I hit pretty well. Maybe I could have hit it better, but I think I did pretty well on it, and I think that's something people can easily overlook if they're just focused on, oh, this is the thing I'm like very interested about, but they never really say like what's that thing about it that gives them that spark. So for me, I think when I talk about kind of like the implications and how that's my motivation to want to study quantum, I think that kind of answered that part of the question. And also I did mention interviewing a Yale researcher, so I think that probably did help. For mine, we had to write articles, so, well, in like our science writing class, and I ended up interviewing a Yale researcher, so it's like, oh, whenever I apply to Yale, I have to include this in my app, so maybe that helped, maybe it didn't, I don't know. Okay, on to the next essay, What is it about Yale that has led you to apply in 125 words? And first drew me to Yale. I'm drawn to how applied physics students learn physics fundamentals while simultaneously exploring its technological applications, something I now value after interning at KSU's Glass Lab. Additionally, both the chance to take classes from professors like Steve Gervin, a father of modern qubits, and the STARS, Science, Technology, and Research Scholars program, where I learned from mentors like him and meet fellow underrepresented STEM students, enthrall me. Still, I'll embody the spirit of Anne in other ways too. I'll play in ensembles like the low-strung cello choir and even combine music with STEM. Yale's Quantum Sound, the first music created from qubits, astonishes me with its creativity, and the prospect of Anne in this light impels me to apply to Yale. So, I think this essay was pretty good too. It's definitely short, so it's quite challenging, but here I talked about Anne, which is kind of like one of Yale's like marketing strategies, I guess. They kind of market themselves as a very like Anne school where you can essentially do different types of like interests and passions at the same time. So I feel like I kind of misinterpreted it at first because I was like, oh, in applied physics you are doing like kind of like more theory stuff and then also like exploring like technological applications, but and I did connect that I guess to my internship. But I think the good things that I did about this essay was I mentioned some specifics about Yale, but I also tied it to like the kind of like main idea of and. So like the entire theme of the essay was and, but I included some specifics about like the physics program that, or different like opportunities like the STARS program, which
I actually don't even remember what that was really about.
But I just remember looking it up on the website and finding that, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna write about this. And also, I feel like my second paragraph talking about music was good because definitely, I mean, if you don't know, I played cello for 10 years, so music is a big part of my life, and I feel like at a school like Yale, it's not something I have to sacrifice, whereas at a lot of other schools, I might have to like not be as musical. And then lastly, I think I hit a very Yale point on this, which is kind of like the combining like a non-academic interest with an academic one, because I remember being on this webinar for Yale before I even applied, where they were kind of talking about like fine arts at Yale, and I guess so like someone asked a question about like do people combine their interests, and the person was like, yeah, like that's what Yale is about, like combining your non-academic interests with academic ones. And I was like, oh my god, jackpot, I'm gonna write about that in my essay. So I found this like combination on, I think it was like one of Yale's like quantum websites, and I was like, oh my god, this is really cool. So I was like, let me incorporate that and be like, I want to do this too. On to my next essay. Reflect on an element of your personal experience that you feel will enrich your college. How has it shaped you in 400 words? Little aside here, I completely forgot to mention this in the video, but for this essay you're actually given 3 options. The first one is reflect on a time you discussed an issue important to you with someone holding an opposing view. Why did you find the experience meaningful? The second is reflect on your membership in a community to which you feel connected. Why is the community meaningful to you? You may define community however you like. And the third is the one that I chose. Okay, back to the video. I recall looking forward to the rare occasions I saw my uncle. At the age I began reading books like Physics of the Impossible, Uncle Luisito was building radio antennas in Grandma's backyard in rural Gurabo, Puerto Rico. We were both anomalies in families that were non-scholarly by circumstance, with my next closest connection to science being my father's forsaken dream of pursuing microbiology. But Luisito and I diverged. Growing up in Atlanta, I had libraries with hundreds of science books and encouraging teachers. He had neither, obstructing him from pursuing his dream of researching particle physics at CERN, something he hoped I'd one day be able to achieve. As a result of this background, I constantly pushed myself to be the best version of myself, not only for myself, but out of respect for those in my family who didn't have as many opportunities as me. It manifests in the days I chose to spend extra class time completing assignments proactively, how I spent my entire winter break of my junior year completing my MICE application, and even how I follow a daily routine of journaling, practicing yoga, and meditating. Though this pressure would, at times, make me feel like I'd never be enough, I've learned to channel this force in a healthy and non-self-destructive way. For starters, I balance out lengthy practice and work sessions by investing in self-care, whether that's through my relaxing skincare routine, comforting daily matcha lattes, or lighthearted FaceTime calls with friends. I also plan my weeks ahead using Notion to prevent myself from getting overwhelmed. Thus, I'm confident the mindset and tips I developed through learning to cope with my occasionally aggressive drive to succeed could be useful to fellow stress YALEs at my college. I'd like to share my experiences with my college by getting involved in its community, whether that's through inviting hallmates to my performances or applying for the residential college seminar program to experience unique intellectual perspectives alongside my college mates. Though it felt like a punch in the gut when Lucito passed this March for the way he'd left the house like he'd planned to return from a quick jog. I like all the YALEs I meet to know I'm grateful for my lived experiences. Without them, I would not have the same drive to succeed and become a role model for future scientists walking along my path. I had a bit of a pronunciation slip up at the end.
But it's okay.
Basically, this essay, reflect on an element of your personal experience. So it's one of those like diversity type essays that colleges started including after affirmative action got struck down. So how has it shaped you? So I kind of feel like you're seeing a lot of this type of prompt where it's like, what's something diverse that you've experienced, and like how is this experience going to contribute to the university? And another part of this prompt that I think I hit well, specifically they say college. So if you don't know, YALE has a residential college system. So kind of like the dorming situation is that the entire university is broken into just like groups of like, I don't know, like a couple hundred students, I don't know for sure. And it's kind of like a microcosm of the university, and that's where you live. And that's a very unique feature of YALE. So they're specifically talking about how you're gonna enrich that residential college. So I did address that in my essay, and it's basically talking about like coming from a background which wasn't super like focused in STEM, or I mean without many family members like doing STEM already, so I kind of had to like pave my own path. And I talk about how that experience, like it asks how has it shaped you. So I'm like, this has shaped me because like coming from this place, I'm extra motivated to succeed. Like I feel that's why I have this like really strong drive. And I also talk about how in having this strong drive, I still have learned to kind of find balance. And then I tie that back to, okay, that's what I'm going to bring to my residential college. I'm going to share these lessons I've learned about having motivation, but also keeping balance within that and learning to like live a healthy lifestyle at the same time. So yeah. So these next 4 essays are YALE's short answers, and they're all 200 characters or 35 words, and I find that I would always say the 200 characters first, but anyway, the first prompt is, what inspires you? And I said, dancing at Carnegie Hall. With National Youth Orchestra 2, I performed Dominican merengue on stage, spinning cellos, encouraging our audience to clap along, and uniting diverse lives under one groove. Next, if you could teach any college course, write a book, or create an original piece of art of any kind, what would it be? Weaving intention into style. Discover the clothing, color palettes, hairstyles, accessories, and scents that make you feel most confident on a budget. Next, other than a family member, who is someone who has had a significant influence on you? What has been the impact of their influence? 35 ones. My fam's vlogs compelled me to live actively after a period of feeling uninspired. She always lives her life to the fullest, whether that's by booking last-minute flights or motorbiking across Bali. Last, what is something about you that is not included anywhere else on your application? I always see the best in others and push them to pursue what they believe they aren't capable of. I've encouraged countless friends to both to audition for Allstate and to apply for mines. Oh, I just realized I have a typo in this. I said, I've encouraged countless friends both to audition for Allstate to apply for mines. Wait, I wonder if I had that typo in the final essay, because anyway, yeah, so that's it for my YALE essays, and just to talk about these last 4 for a little bit. The first one, I definitely wanted to talk about MYO2 somewhere during my app, because I feel like that's a very significant experience for me. But because YALE only had like 3 actual supplemental essays, I couldn't really include it in one of those since I wanted to talk about those other topics more. So I was just like, okay, I'll include it in one of the short answers. So that's how I got that. And then I think my college course one was pretty good because I also really like fashion, so I just wanted to include that somewhere because I feel like it's a part of my identity. Same thing with vlogging. It's kind of like a little fun hobby of mine, so it's like, oh, why didn't I talk about like the YouTuber that got me into vlogging? So that's why I talked about my film. And then my lesson was kind of like mid, but I was like, oh, I always wanted to talk about how I feel like I'm always pushing my friends to kind of like do things like they even think they're not capable of. So I was like, oh, okay, I can include that in one of the short answers. I can't believe I forgot that this wasn't common knowledge when I was recording this video, but for a lot of highly selective institutions, you can submit supplemental materials to showcase additional talent or academic work in your application. So these are very helpful to your application because it can highlight a side of you that you weren't necessarily able to explicitly show, like musical talent or research in the essays that you wrote and your stats. So highly recommend to check out the details for submitting them on each individual college's website. So on top of my essays to YALE, I also submitted a STEM research supplement and an arts supplement. So for the STEM research supplement, essentially I just answered some questions about the research internship I did the fall of my senior year, and basically the first question it asked was briefly describe the context of your research. So I'm not just gonna go over all of these because I feel like it's a little excessive, but and I feel like these questions, it's less about how you answer them and more about the research versus with like the actual essay prompts. The craft is very important, but here you're just talking about it and I don't really think it's that deep. So I just talked about how it was kind of like through the research class at my school and how I met my mentor, and like in this question it's like, for example, how do you come up about the research opportunity? Did your research occur in a laboratory and how long did you pursue it for? And then you have to say if it's like a standalone project or contributed to a larger project, and then talk about the assistance you received while conducting your research. Did you work with your mentor directly in team setting or independently? Did you receive help with your hypothesis? So I talked about that too, about the guidance I received from my mentor. And then I submitted a paper that I wrote. So mine was not submitted for publication, so I just wrote that, and I was like, I didn't ask my mentor to submit a recommendation on my behalf either. So that was what I submitted for my research supplement. And then for my music supplement, I submitted 2 recordings of me playing cello. So it's just like 2 pieces that I use for all of my colleges, and then there's also a questionnaire with that. So that basically just included kind of describing the types of like instruction you received and the music programs we gotten into, and then also a recommendation, which I did include. Yeah, that's it for my YALE application. But as far as how all of this got me the likely letter, so just for some backstory, I got an email on February 7th, which is actually my mom's birthday, that was kind of sus because it was like a YALE admissions officer, like my regional one, being like, we have an update about your application, can you please call? And I already had listened to like the YALE admissions podcast, so I knew, I was like, okay, this is probably a likely letter. And then I called and she confirmed it. And it's kind of interesting because when I called her, she actually kind of told me why I was given a likely letter. So she was like, yeah, we read your application, or she read my application and she was like, wow, I really like this application. So then she sent it to the dean, and the dean was like, okay, like, I really like this, so we're gonna like give you likely admission. And specifically, one thing she told me was that although my application was very STEM focused in my extracurriculars, well, I would say a lot of my extracurriculars were music, but I had some good STEM ones, and then definitely my classes, but also like my essays were very STEM focused. So having all of that into consideration, that's probably why I got the STEM likely letter. But that in combination with my personal statement, which I will talk about in a future video, and I would say some of my like short responses where I included a lot more personality, like about how I like fashion, and I talked about music and then also like vlogging. I think those things made my application stand out a little bit more because I was interested in STEM, but I wasn't just like a one-dimensional personality. Like I had a lot of other interesting things about me. And lastly, I think the last thing that contributed to my likely letter was most probably my research supplement. Even though my research was actually
quite mid.
I heard that a lot of the YES scholars, so like the Yale Engineering and Science scholars, also submitted research supplements. Someone actually said once that you had to submit one to get the YES scholar, but I actually know some that didn't. So I don't think it's like a requirement, but I think that's something that definitely did help in me in getting that likely letter. Hey guys, I realized that I forgot to include my interview as part of this video for my Yale likely letter, and my interview went amazing. It was my best one by far out of 7 interviews, so I definitely think that had to do with my admission and my likely letter. So my interview was really great, and at the beginning of the interview, he kind of outlined the sections that he as an interviewer had to fill out for me. And essentially, those were one about my community involvement, one about my academic passions, one about how well I would fit the liberal arts curriculum, and one about my extracurricular involvement, if I remember those correctly. Basically, I would just say that interview went very long. It was like an hour and a half because we both had time, and it was in person. I've gotten into schools since I'm filming this after I've done all my college positions that I had virtual interviews for. So an in-person interview isn't necessarily better. I just like them more, and so I don't know if that could have to do with it, because it feels like you're in less of a rush, and I really just enjoyed like asking questions. That's definitely one good thing to do. I know for my MIT interview, I never got the chance to ask questions because I thought he would ask if I had any at the end, and he didn't. So just make sure you're kind of incorporating that in throughout the interview and really just being genuine and kind of telling your story as it is. I basically just talked about all the passions that I talked about in my essay, and you don't necessarily have to talk about something completely different from your essays. It can help, but I did add some extra stuff that I didn't necessarily talk about in my essays, but I also talked about that stuff too, so it really just depends. And I don't think the interview is the biggest like weighted portion of an application. I think it just adds to your overall, and it can nudge you in the right direction. Yeah, so that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope this was helpful to you. So good luck to those of you applying to Yale this next season, and I'm going to release a possibly longer video about the other things about my application that I didn't cover. So that's going to include my extracurriculars, my personal statement, and I guess honors. I don't know if there's anything else I'm missing. Maybe just my stats, yeah. So stay tuned for that, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.